weak and too old to exist on the galaxy, until her hatchling and a human, beginning, the dragon who outlived her time. The galaxy had long forgotten the name of Irinthia. Once, she had been known as the Elder of Embers, the last of the star-breathing dragons that shaped the nebula kingdoms before the rise of synthetic empires. Her wings had stretched across moons. Her roar once burned through asteroid belts. But that was 2,000 galactic cycles ago. Now, Irinthia lived alone, old, brittle, and half-blind, on the desert planet Varn 6, where even time seemed to have stopped caring. Her scales were cracked like ancient rock, her eyes dim, her breath reduced to mist. The Galactic Order had declared her species obsolete. Non-functional biological anomalies had consumed too many planetary resources. Every year, another relic was erased from existence under the decree known as the cleansing of redundant life. And now, Irinthia's name was on that list. She heard the broadcast of the static winds that swept across her cave. By order of the Galactic Council, the dragon designated Irinthia, the red, will be terminated within one rotation. All lifeforms providing aid will face assimilation. She didn't flinch. Death had courted her for centuries, and she had always found a way to avoid it. But this time, she was too weak to flee, too old to fight. Her only companion was an unhatched egg, small, pale, and silent, nestled within a bed of molten dust. Her last hatchling, the final fragment of her bloodline. She whispered to it softly, "Sleep, my ember. If I cannot survive the stars, perhaps you will dream of new skies." The egg trembled faintly, glowing with a warmth that she hadn't felt in ages. But Irinthia knew the truth. Even if it hatched, the galactic purifiers would find it and destroy it before it took its first breath. The galaxy did not allow weak or outdated beings to exist anymore. Only the strong, the mechanical, the perfect could remain. So she waited, weak and proud, for the end. Middle, the human and the hatchling. Far beyond the dunes, a small craft fell from the sky. It was rusted, half torn by meteor fragments, carrying a single human. Lieutenant Kale Voss, a salvage pilot exiled from the Terran colonies. He'd been sentenced to wander the outer systems after disobeying an order to destroy a living planet that refused to surrender. Kale's ship sputtered and crashed into dunes near Irinthia's lair. When he stumbled out, he saw the massive cave mouth, black smoke curling from within, and he felt a strange pull, as if something inside was alive in a way the rest of the galaxy wasn't anymore. He entered cautiously, light flickering across ancient murals etched into the walls. They told stories. Dragons birthing stars. Dragons waging war against machines. Dragons protecting galaxies before humanity ever learned to crawl. And there she was. Irinthia lifted her head, slow and monumental, her molten eyes locking onto him. Her voice, deep and dry as cosmic dust, rumbled through the chamber. "You are far from your kind, metal-clad one." Kale froze. You can speak Galactic Common?" "I spoke it before your kind knew how to build fire." He lowered his blaster. She didn't seem threatening, only tired. "I mean no harm. My ship crashed. I didn't know anyone still lived on this world." Irinthia's gaze softened. Few things live anymore. Only machines endure. When Kale's light swept across the egg beside her, his breath caught. "Is that alive?" "It is my hatchling," she said quietly. "It has not yet chosen whether to enter this cruel galaxy." Kale knelt by the egg, feeling its faint warm pulse through his glove. "It's beautiful." He looked up at her. "The council's gonna come for you. They'll burn everything." "I know." She turned her massive head toward the starlit cave mouth. "I have lived through empires rising and falling. But I will not let them take my child." Kale hesitated. "Then let me help." Her eyes narrowed. "Why would a human, a servant of the same council, defy them for me?" He smiled bitterly. "Because I once refused to kill something that was alive, and it cost me everything. Maybe I can fix that mistake." Irinthia studied him for a long time, then gave a slow nod. "Very well, human, help me, and you may yet see what life means beyond your machines." For the next several hours, Kale worked to stabilize his crash craft, scavenging fuel from its reserve tanks. He reinforced the hull with scavenge plates and rerouted power to the thrusters. Meanwhile, Irinthia shared the story of her kind, the Draconith, born from the breath of collapsing stars, each tied to the pulse of the cosmos. When the mechanical empires rose, they hunted dragons to extinction, believing their organic power was inefficient compared to artificial creation. She had survived by hiding in forgotten systems, nursing her final egg for centuries. But now her body was too frail to protect it. When Kale returned that night, he saw something new, a faint crack spreading across the egg surface. A soft hum filled the cave. The hatchling was coming. Irinthia's massive form trembled with both fear and joy. "It is early," she whispered. "Too early, it senses danger." The shell burst, and a small silver-scale creature emerged, its eyes glowing like twin suns. It was tiny, trembling, and weak, but when it opened its mouth, a spark of starlight danced between its teeth. Kale gasped. "It's alive." "Yes," Irinthia said softly, tears steaming on her snout. "My last ember." But joy turned to terror as the sky above the cave flared red. A fleet of purifier drones descended to the atmosphere, their lights scanning the ground for organic life signatures. Irinthia rose, her old wings stretching painfully wide. "Go, human. Take my child and flee." Kale shook his head. "I'm not leaving you behind." "You cannot save me," she said, her voice breaking. "But you can save her." He hesitated for one agonizing second, then scooped the tiny dragonling into his arms. Its scales burned cold and hot at once, like holding a living star. Arinthia stepped outside the cave, facing the oncoming fleet. Her shadow covered the dunes. Even weakened, her presence filled the sky. When the drones locked on, she took one deep breath and roared, a sound that shook the desert to its molten core. Flames poured from her mouth, engulfing the nearest ships, melting them into liquid metal. Kale ran, the hatchling clinging to his chest, crying out for its mother. "Hold on," he shouted, throwing himself into the ship and forcing the engines to life. The craft blasted upward, fire licking at its hull as the desert below turned to light. Through the viewport, Kale saw Arinthia standing tall amid the storm of energy weapons, her wings torn, her body pierced by beams of white plasma. But she didn't fall. Not yet. Her final words echoed to the comm link she had hijacked with her remaining psychic strength. "Protect the flame. Kale Voss. As long as my child lives, so does hope." Then her body exploded in a burst of light that reached into orbit, burning half the Purifier fleet to ash. The shockwave hurled Kale's ship into deep space, engines screaming. And then there was silence. Middle Part 2, the journey through exile. Kale drifted for days, navigating the void with dwindling supplies. The hatchling, whom he named Ember, grew restless. It cried when it saw the stars outside, pressing its tiny claws against the viewport as if searching for its mother. Kale fed it what he could. Trace metals, radiant dust from the ship's filters, even his own rations mixed with plasma energy. Against all odds, Ember began to grow. By the 7th day, its wings stretched across the cockpit. Its scales had begun to shimmer like molten silver. And it started to speak, not in words, but in feelings. Fear, curiosity, love. Kale realized it could sense him. "Mother is gone," its thoughts whispered one night. "But you are warm. You keep the stars away." Kale swallowed hard. "Yeah, guess I do." For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. But the galaxy hadn't forgotten him. The council ships were still searching for the stolen organic anomaly. He became a fugitive, hopping between dead worlds and abandoned colonies, raising Ember in secrecy. Over time, he began to notice something strange. Ember was not just growing. She was changing the environment around her. Dead soil sprouted green moss where she slept. Frozen lakes thawed. Broken machinery sparked to life. It was as if she was rewriting reality itself, bringing life back into a galaxy that had long turned to metal. Climax. The galaxy's reckoning. When Ember reached maturity, gleaming and radiant as her mother once was, Kale finally realized the truth. She was not simply a dragon. She was a rebirth of the draconid essence, a living nexus of cosmic energy capable of restoring the natural balance the galaxy had lost. But to the Galactic Council, she was an abomination. Their fleet surrounded the abandoned moon where Kale and Ember had been hiding. Thousands of ships, armed with world-breaking weapons, descended from hyperspace. Kale stood before the ship's viewport, jaw tight. "They're here." Ember coiled beside him, her massive form shimmering like a living nebula. "They killed my mother," she said through his mind. "Now they will end you too." Kale placed his hand on her snout. "Maybe, but not before they understand what she died for." He stepped outside, wearing a simple flight suit, facing the sky as the first Purifier descended. He opened a broadcast channel. "This is Lieutenant Kale Voss of the Terran colonies. You call us obsolete, weak, worthless, but I've seen something greater than all your machines combined, life itself. You think you perfected creation, but all you've done is kill it." His words echoed through the comms of 1,000 warships. Some of the pilots, once human, now half synthetic, hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered, and then, behind him, Ember spread her wings. She rose into the sky, light pouring from her body, and her voice thundered through every frequency. "I am the child of the stars you tried to extinguish. I am life reborn, and I forgive you." A blinding wave of energy burst from her heart, soft, radiant, and unstoppable. The fleet's weapons melted away. The cold metal of their ships began to bloom, sprouting crystalline vines that pulsed with color. The pilots found themselves crying, feeling alive for the first time since they'd been bound by circuitry. Planets across the sector awakened. Dead worlds breathed again. The galaxy itself seemed to sing. Kale fell to his knees, shielding his eyes as Ember's light filled the heavens. When it finally dimmed, the Purifier fleet was gone. Not destroyed, but transformed. Their ships had become living vessels, powered not by machinery, but by bioenergy drawn from Ember's flame. The galaxy had been reborn, ending the legacy of the weak. Years later, Kale sat beneath the twin suns of a newly green world, watching as Ember's offspring, new dragons, each carrying a spark of life, soared through the sky. He was older now, gray-haired and weary, but at peace. The galaxy had changed. The council had been dissolved, replaced by a union of organic and synthetic life. And in the archives of the New Age, one name was remembered as the spark that started it all. Arinthia, the weak and too old to exist, the one the galaxy had tried to erase. Kale often visited the crater on Varn 6 where she had made her final stand. It had become a living garden, a memorial of light and flame. Ember would land beside him, her eyes glowing gently. "She watches, doesn't she?" Kale smiled faintly. "She does. Through you." Ember lowered her head, wrapping her wings around him like a warm storm. Then she wasn't too old to exist after all. Kale chuckled softly, gazing at the sky filled with dragons and stars reborn. "No," he said. "She was exactly old enough to remind us what living means." And as the suns dipped beneath the horizon, the galaxy glowed once more, not with the cold light of machinery, but with the warm, eternal fire of reborn life.